In this tutorial, I'm going to discuss about VTP. So VTP is VLAN trunk protocol, and it's based on the VLAN, but a bit different. For example, a network admin got the job to create VLAN in a switches. If it's on 1, 2, 3, 4 switches, then admin can go individually and create VLAN according to it. But if the task is to configure same VLANs, same number of VLANs in more than 50 switches or 100 switches, then network administrator will not able to do that, or maybe left the job. But because it's a huge task to create a VLAN in all these switches, in more than 100 switches, or even in 10, 11 switches, we find ourselves in a difficult situation. So BTP is a kind of a savior. It can be done in Cisco proprietary switches, only Cisco switches, and this is a great tool, a great protocol by which admin can create one switch as an administrator, and rest all of the switches will be act as a client. And since they are the client, they will follow switches. They will follow the server switch and will modify their VLAN according to the server switch. Now, for example, if this is a server switch, admin create 2 VLANs, then and rest of the VLAN. If admin goes to rest of the VLAN, rest of the switches, and configure those switches as a client, and if this is a server and rest of the switches behaved or acting as a client, then these 2 VLANs, for example, created these VLAN will be feeded up in these switches also, in the client switches also. So basically, if this server switch, and if admin create 2 VLANs in the server switch, then rest of the client switch will feed up those VLANs on their database, and it will help our network admins to save our time, save our precious time. So these switches will automatically feed up. The VLANs created in the server switch, and client switch will be happily make changements on their own. So this is a great tool, by the way, BTP VLAN trunk protocol, and we will find out when we do a configuration. One big disadvantage is this, that we can only transfer VLAN among switches, but we have to assign ports on our own manually. So this is the only thing which we have to do. We have to assign ports manually by going to each and every switch, but VLAN, the task will automatically save some time. Now, BTP has 3 modes. As one is server, as we already discussed. Another is client, and third is transparent mode. Transparent mode is, for example, if this switch is a client switch, another switch we connected, and another switch we connected. For example, we want this switch to be prepared according to our server or according to what VLANs we want to feed up on the client. So for example, if this switch is a client and we don't want this switch to behave as a client for some reason, I don't know, but for some reason, if we don't want this switch as a client, then we can create the switch as a transparent mode. Means we could behave the switch as a transparent mode, and since it's a transparent mode, it will not feed up, it will not enter the database of VLAN on their switch memory. So, and this switch will behave as a client, and this will be a transparent. So transparent is simply it will behave as a gateway, will accept the data and send the data, but will not configure those database on their on their own database. So this is what the basic rule of transparent mode. So 3 modes are there. Now the file of VTP will be the extension file will be vtp.dat, for example VLAN.dat. So this will be the extension file VLAN.dat, because we are informing we are feeding up the database. We're feeding up the database of VLANs to switches. That's the reason this file extension. And personally, these switches, the client switches, basically put a database, the file, on their system, and will only behave according to the database they get from server. So until unless the switch is known as a client, you will not able to create VLAN personally or manually until unless the switch is acting as a client of a switch. For example, if this is a client, then you can't go to configure a VLAN in the switch, because it will not accept, since it is a client and not a server. Until and unless a switch have a server rights, by default every switch is considered as a client, as a server. By default every switch is behave as a server. So until and unless switch is not a server, you can't create a VLAN on the switch. So switch must be a server to configure VLAN. Now basically another thing is there, the most important thing is there, that we basically create the switch as a server, and we have to took a domain mode. So we create the switch as a domain, we provide a domain name, and the client will be a part of the domain, and with the domain we basically tries to axle up the VLAN information. So this is a nice little thing of VTP. It only can be configured in Swissco proprietary switches, so a limitation is there, but some way it save our network admin time for creating VLAN. Otherwise you have to assign ports manually, so that thing we need to do. So we will learn about VLAN and the VTP configuration in upcoming videos. Only thing is we need to learn about the domain When we create a server, then the domain will have a client and then transparent mode. This is two important thing in the VTP practical: transparent mode, and rest will assign the ports manually like in VLAN. So hope you learned something about VTP, concept of VTP. Thanks for watching.